Okay, I did my tax news presentation on sales tax for different states. And to start off, first off, there's a graph down here that shows what states rely the most on sales tax versus individual income tax. And we know states like our neighboring state Nevada, they don't have any state income tax. They're all sales tax, and so the green there shows of their state, like the darker the green, the more they rely on sales tax. So Nevada relies 41% of its collections of money on state income tax. Or sorry, they rely 41% on state sales tax. And I think for states like Nevada, that would be smarter because it's a super heavily visited state with all the casinos and everything in Vegas, and people come and spend a lot of money on shopping, gambling, stuff like that. So that seems smart that they would tax that, and then they favor the residents by not taxing them on income tax. And then I guess the residents will in turn pay it on sales tax. But if we go back up here, there's another one. Delete that. There's another one here, and it shows how much the the state taxes. So the tax is 6.85%, but then they also have local tax like for counties and cities. So it's just over 8%, which is pretty high compared to Utah's tax is 6%. So it's over 2% more in Nevada than Utah. Granted, Utah does have state income tax though. But what I wanted to focus on was it talked a lot about in this article. It said how the sales tax is usually more stable for a state than income tax, especially during recessions and downturns or economic downturns. It says because people are always having to spend money for food, at least like they might cut back on like frivolous things or like extra things, but they always have to be spending money on food and stuff like that, even if they lost their job, or they have to be spending money on gas, items like that. But they're saying how now, in a time like this, where it's a double whammy, where they lost their job and they lost, I guess, the shutdown, where especially Vegas, where no one's traveling anymore, the state's really hurting because one, people lost their job, so they're not getting any money, and they don't even tax income. So even if they're getting unemployment, they don't get money from that. And then two, no one's traveling to Vegas. All the casinos are closed, malls are closed, stuff like that. So they're not getting any money from sales tax. So they said how usually sales tax is the best way to keep your tax income for a state more stable. But when it's a crazy situation like this, it's not as stable, I guess. Um, the one thing I did think was interesting was so, like, they said how down here they talked about um, how Washington, I believe it's Washington State, which is ranks number one of the most, they don't tax any kind of corporate tax, it's all just sales tax. And then, like, another interesting is New York, they're actually pretty light green right here. They only rely 17% on it. But an interesting thing about New York is that they only charge sales tax if your items are over $100. So if each item is over $100, they'll charge you sales tax on that. But anything under $100, they don't charge you any sales tax on. So it's interesting that New York kind of targets higher ticketed items to sales tax and lower ticketed items like if you just buy something under 100, so it could be like $20 or something, there's no sales tax added. It's just going to be the flat price that you see on the price tags or whatever. So I just thought that was interesting that here many people, um, in this case, if they're relying on sales tax, they are really hurting, especially travel states, because one, they don't get any income from unemployment because they don't charge income tax, and two, there's no sales tax because no one's traveling or spending money, like such as Nevada. Another interesting, I think, let me see if I can find it. that what it kind of went along with this article. It's a different article. I don't have the screen up, but it talked a little bit about how states are also doing away. Some states, like Texas, is one. They charge businesses for inventory items. Like if you have certain items in inventory on your books, then they will charge you. There's a separate tax for that. It's called a tangible TPP, I believe. But it's kind of like a property tax. Tangible property tax is what it's called, I believe. And they charge you tax on that. So inventory items, they charge you tax on that if you have excess inventory and stuff like that. Especially if it's like items that you're leasing and you count that as an inventory item, then you have to pay a state sales tax on that, or any kind of equipment or computers. But also, the article stated how states, to help businesses, are going to do away or get rid of that tax for this year. So I think that's interesting how states are, it's just interesting to see what they do with taxes to help favor businesses. But then it's also interesting to think of how different states, how they did have a tax structure like Nevada of no state income tax, but then in times like this where literally all spending has almost stopped, it seems like they are really struggling to find any money to get a hold of. So that was just my article. It's just interesting to see what states rely the most on the sales tax, and I think the ones that rely most on sales tax right now are probably going to be the ones that are going to be hurting the most, trying to recover, or you're going to see the most deficit when it comes to those states and cities when it comes to their money, or I guess their end of the year income from tax collections.